Hello, this is Maria here, and today we are going to do training on FICA tax refunds. So we're going to talk about what they are, who does not have to pay FICA taxes, and who does have to pay FICA taxes, and then talk about what the refund process looks like and do some practice forms. So to start with, Social Security and Medicare are collectively known as FICA. Social Security is a government pension fund and Medicare is a government medical insurance. If you work as an employee, you pay for half of the cost of this out of your paycheck, and then your employer pays the second half of it. If you work for yourself, if you're self-employed and you have your own business, then you pay it all when you pay your taxes. Non-resident aliens holding F1, J1, M1, and Q1 visas are exempt from Social Security and Medicare taxes so long as their employment is authorized under their visa. If you are exempt from those, but you do have those taxes withheld, then that happens sometimes, and you can file Forms 843 and 8316 to get that money back. This usually doesn't happen because of universities. They're pretty good about it, but oftentimes, any other employer may not understand the rules, and so take those taxes out by mistake. Or sometimes students don't tell their employers about their situation, and then those taxes get taken out. IRS Publication 519 has a lot more detail about this, but we're going to kind of walk through the basics and the important information about it here. All right, so people that do have to pay FICA taxes are people that are resident aliens. So if you're an F1 student and you are a non-resident alien, you don't have to pay those taxes. But as soon as you become a resident alien, you start having to pay those taxes. Likewise, spouses and dependents, so F2, J2, M2s, those all do have to pay FICA taxes no matter whether they are residents or non-resident aliens. And then individuals on other types of visa like H1B or H1A, they all do also have to pay FICA taxes. And if you earn income in violation of your immigration status, then you do have to pay Social Security and Medicare taxes as well. All right, so what is the process? It starts by asking the employer for a refund. And we really, really want the employer to do that. Usually it takes 1 to 2 months, sometimes 3, to get the money back from the employer. The employer also gets their money back as well. So like whatever the student gets, the employer gets that same amount. Sometimes that's enough to make a difference, sometimes not. The employers are not required to do this. So we ask very nicely, try to encourage them to do that. And if they don't, then we also need to document their refusal in our refund request to the IRS. When somebody needs to get a refund, if they are working with us, we have a little short letter that they can send to the employer directly, or we can send a letter on their behalf. And this is an example. Basically, obviously this needs to get updated for 2024, but anyway, essentially says, hi, we're here at VITA site, we're helping so-and-so with their FICA refund. This was a mistake, they shouldn't be charged these. This is how we want to get them back, right? This is the IRS preferred method because then they don't have to do anything, and then, off we go. That's what we would ask, and I would say in general, we're like 50-50 on getting employers to do that. If they don't give us a refund after we send them that letter, then we will help the students complete Forms 843 and 8316. There's like a big list of additional supporting documents that have to go in with those forms. And then the really bad part, right? This takes 12 to 18 months for this refund to get processed. It will not be direct deposited. It will come back as a paper check. So they need to use an address that's going to be good for 1.5 years. This also goes through a different process in the IRS than the typical like income tax return. And so you can't call like the general IRS number to check on the status of it. That's not in any of the IRS systems. So it makes it very difficult, a very long wait. It works, but really, really slowly. And so we really want to try to get the students, we want to get the employer to give the money back if we can at all possibly. All right, here's the big list of what needs to be sent in. Basically, a copy of your W-2, Visa, I-94, I-20 or DS-2019, depending on what visa type you have, I-766 if you're in OPT, the statement from your employer saying that they're not going to refund anything, and the W-2 basically shows the tax withheld. So all of those things get sent in to this address here in Ogden, Utah. So notice that not the same address that we send the tax returns down in Austin, Texas. All right, so the process. So as students have been sending us emails all during the course of the filing season, whenever they say, oh, I need help with a FICA tax refund, we kind of give them some information to start that process, to go ask their employer directly for that refund. And then we put a little note in all of those emails so that we can go back and we can extract, okay, these are all the people that have this little tag associated with them. These are the people we need to reach back out to say, let's get a FICA refund. So I will be reaching out to them over the next few weeks to say, hey, have you reached out to your employer? Are they giving you the money back or not? We'll see what they say. If the employer gives the money back, then that's great, right? It's solved. We don't need to do anything. If they won't, though, then that's kind of where our process kicks in. So the way it works is our student is going to create a shared drive, and they're going to put a copy of their W-2 and their tax return in that folder. All right, this confirms the tax withheld, their visa, their non-resident alien status, and that they're eligible for the FICA refund and that they had FICA taxes withheld. Then you, as a volunteer, you are going to prepare forms 843 and 8316 and save them in the folder. TaxSlayer does not have these forms in the software, so we can't do that. We're going to have to go really old school and fill out the PDF forms electronically, but by typing them in rather than using any real software to do it. By the way, I would strongly recommend that you get Adobe Acrobat Reader to use for filling out the forms. If you use some other PDF reader software, we have had issues with texts and fonts and getting a correct PDF printed out of the final form. So please use Adobe Acrobat Reader. Get that and use that. Once you've done the creation of the forms, you'll let me know, and then I will come in and I will do the quality review of the forms. I'll double check that the 843 and 8316 are good. This is like the traditional model for VITA sites, right? What one person does, another person has to check. So that's the way we're going to do it. Once I confirm that everything is good, I will put the filing instructions and the list of documents required in the folder. Then it'll be up to the student to print, sign a date, and send in the forms. We'll also tell them at that point to take us off of the folder, right? Because it's their folder, they have control over it. They gave us access to it, but once we've finished, we want them to take us off because we don't need to see their stuff anymore. We're also going to really strongly encourage them to use USPS priority mail or some other method of delivery that will give them tracking information. Right? They're going to be waiting 12 months, 18 months. We really, really want to know that these forms at least made it successfully to the IRS, rather than having that be yet another part of the question when it's, a year later and nothing has arrived. Okay, if you have any questions, please reach out to me, volunteer at nrtaxhelp.org. All right, let's look at what the forms look like. So 8316, this is an old form. It hasn't been updated in a long time, and that's great. It's nice and easy. Basically, was the income related to your course of studies? We're going to always say yes to this. If it is no, then there is no refund of the FICA taxes. That would be like employment in violation of their visa requirements. If you check yes, you have to try to get a refund. Has your employer paid you back? No, they haven't. Have you authorized your employer to claim any part of the credit or refund? No, right? Sometimes employers will. If they're gonna give you the money back, they'll have some forms that the students have to sign that says, I authorize my employer to collect this refund on my behalf. But in our case, right, the employer said no, so the answer here is no. Has your employer claimed any part of the refund? We're gonna say don't know, because we really don't know what that employer may not do. Then we're going to say, We're not going to do this cannot get a statement. We're going to just say, we've requested the statement and they said they can or can't do it. Have you claimed this tax as any credit on your federal income tax return? We're going to say no there. Fill in the employer information and then the student's signature, student's phone number, convenient hours to call, right? It can just be like Monday M through F, Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. Central, or whatever works for the student. All right, next are, oops, I already talked about this. This is kind of where it is, so it's written down if you need it. All right, Form 843, which has been updated as of December 2024. So it looks a little bit different than it did in the past. As we go through this one, basically, we're going to check under that tax, that refund to employee of Social Security, Medicare, or RRTA, tax withheld in error is what we're going to check for the top. We're going to put the name and address of the person, their Social Security number. If they had a different address when they filed their income tax return, we're going to put that name and their address on their return. We'll put a phone number in there. We are not going to put the employer ID number for the organization that withheld the tax. That is if an organization is filing a return, not an individual. For line number 1, it's going to be the tax year, so 01/01/2024 through 12/31/2024. Amount to be refunded and rebated, that's going to be the sum of the Social Security and Medicare tax taken out. Dates of payments are going to be blank. Line 4A is employment tax. That's where it goes. Line number 5, this was reported on a D, a 941. 6 is going to be blank. 7, we're going to say C, reasonable cause or other reason allowed under the law can be shown. Then they're going to explain here, and I've got a good explanation that you can just copy over. I'm a non-resident alien, temporary present on an F1 visa, taxes were mistakenly withheld, so on and so forth. And then the final thing that we're going to do here is down at the very bottom in this P10 spot, we're going to put our site ID number, which is S392-021. That just lets the IRS know who helped them with those forms. So let us do an example now, right? You hopefully remember Sunil. We saw a lot of him during the training for the tax returns. And we're going to do it again. So let's pretend that he had Social Security and Medicare taxes taken out from his paycheck while he worked at Cray. He asked them for the money back and they said no. Again, right, tell them 12 to 18 months. Let's pretend our quote from the employer is, we can't provide a FICA refund because our accounting period is closed and we cannot make adjustments. That's whatever it is. And then here is his information about his Social Security and Medicare taxes withheld. All right, so let's do the forms. All right, we're going to go here. We're going to put this like this. And then we're going to go get the forms. All right, so let's do it. Sunil's Form 8316. Okay, so was it directly related? Yes. Has your employer paid you back? No. You authorized? No. Do not know. All right. Okay, let's go back to this, right? And he says, they say, right, per, oops, that's not working. Copy, paste, because, right, because, quote, because their accounting period for 2024 is closed and they cannot make adjustments. That's what they say. Have you ever done this? All right, nope. And then we're going to go here. So we would say name and address of employer, Cray Inc., 2131 Endow Lane, number 1000, Washington, Minnesota, 55425. All right. Whatever the number is, Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. Central, whatever it is. And then we would obviously not fill in the signature and date because that's what they're going to do. And that's the form, right? Super, super simple and easy. Now let's go to the 843. So we're going to go here. We're going to say this is a refund of the Social Security taxes. Sunil Gosain, 999. All right. Address. All right. So we're going to say that we've talked with Sunil, and he has promised us that he's going to be living here for at least another 3 years because he's going to be getting his PhD here at the U of M. So that's super great. Minnesota 55455. Remember, it can be an address that's outside of the US, right? It's just going to take that much longer to get to them. It can be somebody else inside the US. It can be a relative or a friend, or it can be somebody like a professor from the department, or whoever it's going to be. It just needs to be a reliable address that they can use. All right, because his address was the same. That is not how you spell Gosain. There we go. His address on his return was the same. We're not going to make any changes here, but if he had moved since he last filed his tax return, then we would put the new address there. All right, daytime telephone number. There we go. All right, so 01, 01, 2020, oops, 24, 12, 31, 2024. So let's do some really quick math. 1736 plus 406, 2142. We're rounding to whole dollars, remember? So if it is not an even amount, add the two amounts and then round the resulting number. All right, dates of the payments, which we're requesting refunds on, we're going to leave that blank. It is an employment tax. It was on form 941. We're going to leave 6 blank. Line 7 is going to be C, reason allowed under the law, right? We have statutory reasons that say you don't have to pay these taxes. All right, and let's go here. We're going to copy this and we're going to paste. All right, my employer refused to. So, and then we're going to just copy the amounts. Let's see here. So, Social Security taxes of 1,736 and Medicare taxes of 406 for a total of 2142. There we go. All right. We're going to put our number S3 9221. And there we go. And that is the forms. And it's just that simple. So it's not very complicated at all. It's just basically walking through the example. Totally okay to have the example in Sunil's returns pulled up on side by side as you're working through the example. It's no problem. So if we come back to this now, let's go here. We're going to say, okay, we've done that. All right, so now it's going to be your turn, right? So we have also given you a W-2 for Aiden, who you may remember from the volunteer readiness check. So we're going to have you prepare his forms for him. If you make lots of mistakes, I will probably have you do another set of forms, but if you do it right, then you're going to be good. And at that point, you're going to be ready to start helping clients. So I'm in the process of starting to reach out to all of the students who told us that they needed help with this. And then once I start to get those names, I will reach out to you. And once you've done your your practice to demonstrate you can do this, I'll reach out to you. One thing you should know, right, is that this is generally a slow process. So I reach out to the people and, they email back to me, we email to the employers, and then, they get back to us after a week or two. So usually this process is not very fast. as an overall process. However, when you get involved, you're kind of coming into the middle of it as the volunteer to prepare these forms, right? I've already been talking with the students to get this back, to get the letter from the employer. So, they've already been doing some work that's already been, a month or two, since they originally reached out to us back during the filing season. So if you can, or as you can, please try to get to the forms once you hear from them within like 3 to 5 days. That would be much appreciated, just because this process is long and we want to try to keep it moving through the course of the summer. So, and then once you get access, once you prepare those forms, you need to let me know that those forms are prepared, because otherwise I won't have any idea that those forms are ready to go. And you're going to upload those forms to that shared drive. So they're going to have a folder, they're going to put you on it, it's going to have their W-2, it'll have their tax return form. You're going to prepare forms 843 and 8316. The links to the blank forms are in the Moodle course. And then you can upload those forms to that folder and then send me an email saying, hey, Maria, those forms are all updated. Let's go. And then if there's any issues, I will give you feedback, or I'll give you feedback anyway. Just say, yep, that was great, or don't forget to put the year, or whatever issue there might be. And with that, thank you. That's really all there is to it. And again, if you have any questions, please reach out to me and let me know. Thank you again. Bye.